Good tidings, friend, and welcome to a new Xehashort. Now, you've probably read the incredibly clickbaity title, and I'm here to talk to you about the seemingly commonly accepted fact that Marluxia is the one who killed Striletzia. But here I'm going to bring you lots of evidence to the contrary, as well as a lot of other concerning things regarding Striletzia. And yes, I finally learned how to pronounce her name because someone I know who actually speaks Italian sat me down and fixed it. Um, so we're here to talk about Striletzia. This is Striletzia. Now, to prove some things, this is a Google search, Striletzia Khux. And ironically, part of how I realize some things is by just Googling her name. Striletzia is the genus name for a type of flower. Now, the same friend who speaks Italian pointed this out to me as well. It is the bird of paradise. Ta-da! Now, this shape of this flower is very concerning, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But most people are familiar with the bird of paradise flower. It's that flower from Hawaii. It's that weird bird-shaped flower thing with weird colors. I have neighbors who keep trying to grow it even though we live in Virginia. It's quite sad. Now, we know that Strelitzia did get killed, and we know that Marluxia shows up late, being one of the new foretellers. However, I'm fairly certain that he is actually out for revenge, and one of the other foretellers is the one that killed her and took her spot, and he kind of knows that this happened, but may not be entirely sure who it is, and other such things. Listen, because I found some fucked up shit. There is a connection between Marluxia and Striletzia. The proof I found of that connection, I don't think leads to a relationship of murderer and victim, because um when Striletzia first became a thing, I pointed out that his final form in Retrain Memories has a female form. I never even noticed the woman's face on this goddamn thing until I started looking it up. Now, when this is the final form here with the wings. Now, I would like you to look at the original sprite and tell me, what does that look like? It looks like a goddamn bird of paradise. Now, ironically, the flowers directly behind Marluxia look more like a dahlia flower, which is what his scythe is actually named after. But this entire shape is the similar shape of the damn bird of paradise right here. You can see that, I mean, it's down instead of up here with but it's that shape, and all these little flanges that Marluxia has common with his stuff, especially this front piece here. Whoops. The nose right in front of her face there. It looks so much like the tip of the bird of paradise flower. These purple pieces, you can see that. Whoops. No, I don't want to share it. Damn it. These purple pieces. It's the same goddamn thing. So regardless of what else you take away from this video, 100%, this is Striletzia. And that leads me to think that this is less of a, I'm sorry, I'm talking to my hand, I'm sorry if the mic fucked that up, of a, like, I murdered you and took your spot thing, because if that's all that he was doing was murdering this bitch and taking her spot in the second set of foretellers, why would he continue especially since under that theory it seems like she's a very random target. It's just because she's the weakest of the 5 people picked. Why would he continue to have a relationship with her possibly thousands of years into the fucking future, where he's still relying on her nobody, or what's left of her nobody, to help make him stronger? You could argue that this is some sort of captured form, that, she came back after him as a nobody and he, like, enslaved her, but I don't really think that's the case, given it's, like, his final boss form, and it seems very mutual, and especially if you look at, like, these images from the boss fight, she's holding his scythe. His scythe itself looks like a bird of paradise when you look at it. And she still has the colors of the bird of paradise and the wings and those same phalanges. Now, those phalanges are also similar to the nobody symbol in general, but we'll get into that in a second here. Um, it's a figure that looks like it's protecting him. It doesn't look like someone he captured and is forcing to work for him like he was with Naminé. Which that's an entirely other can of worms, because as not that I want to like people, please don't come and hunt me down because I said something mean about Naminé, because she's absolutely precious and I love her. But the fact of the matter is, in Chain of Memories, her ultimatum was not harm Sora under penalty of death. It was harm Sora or you don't get to leave that castle. There's a lot of unpacked information in that ultimatum where there could have been a lot more extra things that would have made it a lot more reasonable on both Marluxia and Naminé's part as to why those things happened, so it wasn't just Naminé going, I'm gonna murder some bitches because I really don't want to sit in this house anymore. But back to the Striletzia Marluxia connection thing. And yeah, you can see the nose of the scythe looks like, which it's named Graceful Dahlias. For the longest time, everyone just didn't. I mean, it looks goddamn nothing like a dahlia flower. If you know what that looks like, I didn't think to save a picture of that beforehand. But it's a very round flower. Like I said, it looks like the one behind him here, rather. But yeah, you can even see, just looking between that image and that the spokes and birds of paradise, you can see it here in my Google search. They come in slightly different colors. There's probably a strain, especially since Striletzia is like the genus name, not like the specific name of the flower. To my understanding, that like this is the darker orange, and some of them, are a lot more yellow, and I'm sure there's a strain with the pink, more prevalent as well, but. So I'm pretty sure that they were, especially, here's another thing. Marluxia is the graceful assassin. Now, I think a lot of people took the fact that there was a mysterious Shink and he showed up 5 minutes late to the meeting with Starbucks, and went, well, clearly he murdered a bitch. But, hear me out. Murdering one bitch to take their place does not an assassin make. That is not assassin work. That is murdering a bitch to take their place. It's very different. It's not an assassination. It's not murdering someone because someone else paid you to or told you to, usually for political reasons. And usually also murdering one person does not always, I mean, it can. But that doesn't seem very likely given Marluxia's epithet and personality and stuff, and it seems to do more with his personality and being a kind of person who was in fact, paid to go murder people, which is technically conjecture, but it doesn't really fit with the circumstance in my opinion. So calling him an assassin because of murdering Striletzia doesn't seem to fit right. It seems more likely that his work or place in the Keyblade War was doing some sketchy shit for some sketchy people, and because he was already in that line of thing when his friend, acquaintance, former party member, whatever, got murdered, or even just the nice girl who passed him and paid for his coffee once, for all we know, from the damn Moogle shop, and he found out about it, he went out on a sort of revenge quest. I do have a personal theory, more / headcanon type thing, about how, if I had to guess what Marluxia was doing before he was made a 2nd gen foreteller, it would be that either one of the foretellers, most likely Ira or Aced, were having him take out impure Keyblade Masters, because towards the end of the Keyblade War, they were all of the original foretellers were getting pretty damn sketchy and just way too big for their britches and doing a lot of fucked up shit. And we already have Striletzia, who is very important to me, that Striletzia points out the fact that the idea of the dandelions is literally picking who gets to live, and that's not fair. That's wrong. You're playing God, going, the world's going to end, let's only pick the good beans to go in our little arc thing and not die. For my many comparisons to Kingdom Hearts Final Fantasy 13, this is literally what Lightning was trying to stop morality-wise. It's like the bad guy logic of 13 is the good, well, not the good guy, but the foreteller logic of Unchained Key, so it's really dicey, when you think about it moral-wise. And I don't think, because we already had something that dark, even though it wasn't pointed out until Striletzia finally got a little cutscene to make us feel bad before she died. Well, I mean, it was there, it just wasn't pointed out, like, as a, like, brought to your attention directly. Like, Striletzia was Nomura going, hey, look at this thing that I did. Um, I don't think it's really past the realm of possibilities that some of the other foretellers, especially, I mean, you've seen Aset and his, him getting a little too angry, although I personally think it was more likely that it was Ira, at the end of his rope right before the war started, because if you've seen the Japanese cutscenes for the actual Keyblade War and the browser version of Kai, they're all just fucked up and gone at that point. Having just been like, oh, that person's Shirthi is starting to get a little dark, you should get rid of them so we can try and stop the darkness from happening that way. Which is some dark shit, but it's Square Enix, and Square Enix likes to not care that Disney wants Kingdom Hearts to be rated E for everyone quite frequently. So, Striletzia, and that being her moral and that being a thing is very important. Now, we also know from the main artwork, which I foolishly did not put in this folder, that I did another video on the other day, where she's in the org coat with the other new foretellers. She seems to be one of the first nobodies, which also would help sort of drive home this fact. Also, if you look at this figure too, it's hard to get a high-res version of the whole thing, unfortunately. But it is sort of wearing, like, it looks like a dress, but it could pass for an org coat if you tried, sort of thing. Especially, like, it has random little, like, zipper things drawn into it, which is very standard nobody, and it has the hood. But it seems very likely that Organization 13, or the organization, if you've noticed, originally in Chained to Memories, it was an Organization 13, it was just the organization. That such a thing existed a very long time ago, and probably broke down entirely and was originally led by Striletzia, being who is at this point almost 100% the first nobody to ever be created. And Xemnas finding out about it and Court kind of picking up pieces and restarting it. And that's where it came from. And that's how they got the black coats that the Master of Masters had and things like that. Also important to note, everyone likes to talk about these nobodies from one of the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers and them being Marluxia confirmed. I'm not saying they're not, but I would like to point out that they are much more Striletzia shaped. And if Marluxia still has this tie to Striletzia, and they're kind of in their own corner going, fuck everyone, then this could just mean both of them are once again in their own corner, and that's the reason why he, as a somebody now, still has access to nobodies. Or it could just be Striletzia. I mean, with Lauriam in the update, Marluxia not showing up in Kingdom Hearts 3 would be really confusing, so I don't really think we have to worry about him showing up. But these are definitely a more Striletzia-shaped thing at this point. So, and I said earlier, I was going to talk about its shape relating to the actual nobodies in general. The nobody symbol, just the shapes of dusks and the shape of the foot of this dusk. Like, that shape is a bird of paradise. Like, you can see it right there, like, it's a dusk foot. So, the whole idea that Striletzia may have been the first nobody and sort of the progenitor seems very strong at this point, and that they're all sort of tied to her, even though we have the various ones that seem to be based off of, the different org members, or it could be that it works like, if you're a nobody who retains a human form, you have so many, depending on how strong you are, lesser nobodies that kind of latch onto that form. And so a lot of the default nobodies actually came from Striletzia, as well as these flowery ones. Of course, also, I can't believe I forgot to say this. The biggest connection between Striletzia and Marluxia that is going to sound stupid, but I think is one of the biggest pieces of evidence why they had a positive connection and that Marluxia was not the one that killed her, is that Striletzia is a flower. Marluxia loves flowers. Marluxia is the flower guy. Why would you have... I mean, yes, he has a scythe, he has a reaper that has to do with harvesting, but the idea that you would have this character who was entirely flower themed and then they went and killed basically Eris. Like if Sephiroth was flower themed and he killed Eris, wouldn't you be a little confused? It just doesn't mesh right. It definitely hits towards a very different, more positive relationship between the two characters. That's just what I'm really trying to get at. I really feel that the fact that Marluxia walked up in that cutscene is a huge red herring, and the fact that he killed her is just not a fact. It's just a lot of assumptions people are making. It's just way too obvious. And there's all these connections between them that just seem so much more interesting and in depth. And speaking of Sephiroth metaphors, can talk about those wings, am I right? That especially since too, I noticed just being a new thing that in this form Marluxia's coat does the tatter thing that his vest has as Lorium, which might be a reference to that whole thing. Now another angle we can look at this at, as far as specifically the boss form, might be something similar to Ansem and his Unguardian, which I know is not what it actually is, but I'm still going to call it that. I'm going to say that every time. Which that's one of the I could the Unguardian is a very confusing entity in and of itself. But Ansem Seeker of Darkness's final boss form came from that entity that was a weird connection-y thing from how it was created. So that connection being a similar thing between him and Striletzia nobody is why he has all of this. Whether or not Xemnas knows about Striletzia and Marluxia's connection to it, why that's why he was sent to the castle, or if he didn't know and Marluxia set it up so he got to go to the castle because he knew Castle Oblivion was a land of departure and the Book of Prophecies was probably there, and Ventus was there, and Ventus was actually secretly his homie this whole time because fuck Kingdom Hearts apparently. Yes, so this has been my dissertation on why Marluxia has actually done nothing wrong and did not murder Striletzia, and why Striletzia is very important, and why they were probably friends. And please stop assuming that Marluxia murdered a bitch, because that's really unlikely, and if it was anyone, it was probably Brain. Or Ventus. Because Ventus is really sketchy, at 50% Vanitas at the time of Key. So remember that. More on those series at another time. Just wanted to throw that out there and throw out all of this connection evidence. I've been talking about it with friends for a while without ever actually, just from memory, without actually looking up any of the imagery, and then when I did, I was like, oh no, that bitch is just straight up on his little mech thing, fuck, and it looks like a bird of paradise, so what you gonna do, guys? So, on that note, Marluxia did nothing wrong. Leave him alone. Leave Marluxia alone. And until next time, save your tears, because we'll be back.